Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the Frank McNabb exhibition. But first of all, I need to give you an apology in advance because for many years I worked with a guy called Ken McNabb, and he's the only McNabb I knew for several years. Sandra knows him as well. That's right. Until I met Frank about a month ago. So if I end up calling you Ken at some point tonight, Frank, please forgive me. Frank, as you probably know, moved from Glasgow down to Muirkirk, which, you know, Glasgow's loss was Ayrshire gain, as far as I'm concerned. And when we had a very interesting chat over at Dumfries House, Frank gave me an insight into how he puts his work together. And what really struck me was how the subtlety between reality and non-reality, but like the wee bit of just beyond what you can actually see, sort of the dream world, creeps into a lot of his work. You'll probably see that picture up there in the corner how at the top it just looks, it's a human, but down below there's sort of dream world featuring wee fairies and elves and animals and so on. And he's done this since he moved to Muirkirk and found the surroundings so completely different from Glasgow, and he tells me he finds it very inspirational. Lots of these paintings here feature Muirkirk, and if anybody knows Muirkirk, you know it's mainly a big waste, but it wasn't always like that. You know, it used to be the centre of industry. There used to be ironworks and things in Muirkirk, and it was a busy place.
And it's not a big waste anymore.
No, it is. It's a nice big village, true, but it's surrounded by the remnants of post-industrial Muirkirk. Frank told me that when he moved to Muirkirk, his next door neighbour, Jimmy Taylor, started telling the stories about what the Muirkirk of old, what it used to look like. And he said there were cinemas up there. Cinemas in Muirkirk, you can imagine, there's only about 7 people there, you know. Couldn't have been very busy, but in those days obviously was. So he told me one of these stories. I'm going to read it from the magazine there, from the feature that we wrote. So he said Jimmy was telling him all about Muirkirk's past and how there are a number of cinemas in the village. And Frank said to me, I thought it was amazing that a wee place at Muirkirk could have these cinemas. So I thought about who might be the most famous movie star from the days when Muirkirk was busy in the 1950s. And so I thought, of course, of Marilyn Monroe. And he said, so I reimagined Marilyn Monroe visiting Muirkirk in 1957 with her husband, Arthur Miller. And he decided to paint Marilyn Monroe in Muirkirk, looking to cross the road to Trotters. And there's a picture of his included wee Jimmy cycling along, and he recognises Marilyn Monroe, and he's looking a wee bit shocked. And that paint's up in the corner there, if you want to have a wee look at it. Another thing, apart from the reality and the non-reality, the natural and the supernatural, there's always a lot of humour in Frank's work. Humour, even when you look at during COVID, when Frank was seriously ill with COVID and almost went to hospital, did go to hospital with it. During that period, he imagined the COVID virus as a big jellyfish floating through above everybody up through the streets and infecting people. And you know, a very funny and understandable idea. So anyway, everybody's got their own story. Frank knows there are wee pieces beside each painting that gives you an idea of what was in his mind when he was creating this work. So I'd just leave you to make your own way across that. And before you look through the rest of the work, I just have to say thanks to the Maclaurin staff for setting up the exhibition, and to the Friends of Maclaurin for providing refreshments and so on. So enjoy the exhibition.
Thanks very much, Jerry. Very grateful for that. This is just a wee list of people that I would like to thank for helping with us. And as Jerry just said, the staff at Maclaurin have been wonderful, really helpful. Erin and you know, the various people that have helped, to Mark Fairley to hang the exhibition, etc. Diane Gardner, Friends of Maclaurin, who isn't well, I hope she gets better soon, but thanks to her for allowing this exhibition to go ahead. The attendants that work in the Maclaurin, I'd like to thank them as well. I used to work as an attendant in libraries in Glasgow, and I know how vital it is both to have attendance and to be on a good side. I would also like to thank a fellow artist in Norway called Inga Tollesgården, who helped with a lot of the work. And especially I'd like to thank my friends and neighbours in the beautiful Ayrshire village of Muirkirk, which is a thriving artistic centre of the area. And you might be surprised at what's going to happen in the years to come in that regard, because Muirkirk is quite a central place for the arts in South East Ayrshire, so we'll see how that gets on. My friends and neighbours, my neighbours have been wonderful. Just after I moved into Muirkirk, as well as the culture shock of moving from Partick, where there was 65 buses an hour going by my house. The first winter, the first Christmas we had in Muirkirk, the house went on fire. And the fire brigade were out, and all the neighbours came out to help, and they all offered wonderful sort of help, and I really can't thank them all enough. And I'm grateful to see some of them here today. They accepted myself, who's a bit of an oddball, my partner, who is in love with the garden that we've got now, and my mad dog, Dracula, who doesn't like it anything. So I hope you'll enjoy looking at the pictures, and if there's anything that anybody wants to ask where they're looking, just come and grab a hold of me and that's fine. Okay, so thank you again for coming along and enjoy it.